The BMW E30 is an iconic beast. It's one of those cars that made the history not only of BMW but of the automotive. It's a car that was so far ahead of the time, and now it's time to bring back on the road this beauty after about 3 years hibernating in a room temperature controlled garage. We got all the parts here ready to be installed in the car. We have all the fluid, oil, coolant, power steering, brakes, differential, transmission, spark plug wires, distributor cap, all brand new gasket, Brembo brakes, water pump, thermostat, tensioner, radiator, hoses, clutch fan, filters, everything. And with the car finally in place, now we can start working. This thing is so clean. I could eat my pasta right here. Next step, we have to remove the hood in order to be able to work on the front of the car. So first thing first, we are gonna remove the hood cover. The first thing to do is to remove those clips. There are about 20 or so, and once those are done, we can finally remove the hood cover. Next, we have to undo the main hose that bring the water to the nozzles. Now we can disconnect the main hose. Okay. Disconnect the electrical connectors. And now we can use a fishing wire to attach to the nozzle and to the electrical connector. So later on, when we have to reinstall everything in the car, it's gonna be so much easier. Disconnect the lower clip and start removing everything from the inside part of the hood. Everything is out. The fishing wiring is here. So later on, it's gonna be super easy to put everything back on the car. Now we can secure the fishing rope to the hood. Put back the water nozzle in the engine bay and mark the hinges before removing the hood so we know the next time where to put them back together. Next, we are going to remove the arm that holds the hood. There is a clip here that needs to come off. Next, there is a pin to be removed. And start removing the bolts that hold the hood in place. Now we are not going to remove all of them, we are going to remove just 4 and leave the other 2 loose. Let's break loose this one. Same thing here. Okay, and now we should be ready to remove the hood. Okay, hood removed, ready to work. First thing, we have to start disassembly the plastic cover on the belly pan, removing all the clips, all the bolts and the nuts. Guys, this thing is clean. This is bone dry. Not a single speck of corrosion, not a single speck of rust. We have a tiny little bit of leak that is probably coming from the valve cover gasket. And for the rest, the car is super clean. First thing, we are going to remove the coolant from the system, and this is so good that has the petcock valve. Okay, let's open the radiator cap now, and there's going to be way more coolant coming. With the coolant removed, now we can start removing the radiator cap, being very careful to not damage the radiator hoses. Those are the original ones from 1987, and they are surprisingly in a very good condition, so I don't want to damage any of them. Next, we can remove the clutch fan. We have to use a special tool, it's a 32 millimeter. Hold the clutch in place and just undo the nut. And remove the clutch from underneath of the car. Undo the lower radiator hose. Remove the two 10 millimeter bolt holding the radiator to the frame. Disconnect the sensor, removing the plastic bottom clips. And now we can finally remove the radiator. Beautiful. Next step, we have to remove the distributor. So the first thing that we have to do is removing the spark plug wires. At the same time, we are breaking loose the bolt holding the valve cover, as two of those are need to be removed in order to remove the spark plug wires. With the wiring out, now we can remove the upper radiator hose, and we can see that there is more coolant coming out. Next is the time to remove the distributor cap, and then we can unbolt and remove the rotor. With the rotor and the distributor out, now it's time to start working on the belt. The three of them, they have tensioners that need to be break loose. We have the AC belt, the power steering belt, and the alternator belt, at least in this model. All of them need to be break loose in order to have the belt able to be slide off the pulleys. Remove the alternator bracket, remove the pickup sensor, disconnect the oil sensor. Next, we are removing the crankshaft pulley. There are 6 13 millimeter bolts that we cannot see from the camera. Remove the harmonic balancer, and now it's time to remove the timing belt cover. There are 2 bolts at 10 millimeter and at 13 millimeter. And here we can see the timing belt. Remove the lower timing belt cover. There is a 10 millimeter bolt. Perfect. Break loose the camshaft bolt. Before removing the timing belt, we have to make sure that the engine is locked at top dead center cylinder 1. There is a mark on the crankshaft pulley and a mark on the camshaft pulley, and both marks, they need to line up in order to allow the belt to be removed safely. The mark is here and needs to line up with this one on the head. So we have to keep rotating the engine. Another turn. Now we have this lining up with this, and the other mark on the camshaft lining up with this, which means that we have cylinder 1 at top dead center, and now we can remove safely the timing belt. Removing the timing belt tensioner, and with the tensioner off, we can now remove the timing belt. Next, we can remove the old water pump, and with the water pump off, we can remove the camshaft pulley. One thing that we can see is that there is a leak coming from the camshaft seal. We are gonna replace it. And there is some leak coming from the valve cover. We are gonna replace even that one. Remove the camshaft seal with the cover. And start removing the thermostat housing with the thermostat cover. Disconnect the water sensor and remove the thermostat housing from the engine block. These are some of the old parts removed from the car. There is the thermostat housing, the thermostat cover, old water pump, and the tensioner. So these two are gonna be replaced. And these are the two parts that we are gonna keeping and cleaning. And here we can see some of the parts before and after the cleaning, ready to be put in the car. Remove the old thermostat gasket, and the old water pump gasket from the engine block. Next we can replace the gasket for the camshaft seal. Old gasket out, and now we can put the new one. Let's make sure that the surfaces are perfectly cleaned, and let's put some sealant around the gasket before installing them in. Put a new ring in, some cleaning, and we are ready to install the seal. Okay, now one thing that we want to make sure is that the seal, the O-ring, doesn't get stuck. So we are rotating a little bit the flange like this, and we are good. Reinstalling the screw and torque them down to 7.4 foot-pound or 10 Newton meter. Cleaning the surface for the new water pump gasket and install the water pump. New screw and torque them down to 10 Newton meter. Installing the gasket for the thermostat housing, put it in, and torque them down to 10 Newton meter. Reinstalling the water sensors and start reinstalling the coolant hoses. Reinstall the camshaft gear, make sure that sits perfectly in place, and reinstall the bolt. This is the new tensioner. This is the spring that hold the pressure from the tensioner to the belt. This is the old spring, and this is the new one. And we can see that there is a different in length between the old and the new, and this is a good thing to replace. It's a very cheap, and this makes a big difference when you do a timing belt. Installing the spring on the tensioner, attach the tensioner to the engine block, and put a securing screw. And compress the tensioner to reinstall the timing belt. Okay, and now we can see that the spring is fully compressed. To install the timing belt, we want to start from the bottom and move all the way up. Okay, here the tension is good. And here now we can release the tensioner. Unbolt the 13mm, and automatically the tension is going to apply the right tension to the belt. With the belt installed and the tensioner installed, we can now rotate the engine 2 full turn. And once we are done, we want to make sure that the crankshaft and the camshaft marks are still aligning, which means that the engine is in perfect timing. And with both marks aligned, now we can torque down the tensioner. And now we can torque to spec the camshaft bolt. Next, I'm gonna make a gasket for the thermostat cover. I'm not running a thermostat because I want to do a complete flush of the system, and it's much better to do it without the thermostat in place, so we don't have to wait that the engine goes at full operational temperature and the thermostat open. Okay, and we have our gasket made, so now we can use the thermostat housing without the thermostat and do a proper flushing to the coolant system. Put the thermostat cover back and torque down to 10 Newton meter. And now we can start installing the timing belt cover, starting from the bottom and then putting the top part. Reinstalling the alternator bracket, the protection plastic cover for the wiring, and reinstall the pickup sensor. Start reinstalling the coolant hoses into the water pump housing. Put back the harmonic balancer. Reinstalling the plastic protection for the wiring. Put back the crankshaft pulley. There are 6 bolts that are not visible. And torque them down to 22 Newton meter. Next, we are installing the water pump pulley, and at the same time we are installing the alternator belt, otherwise it's gonna be a nightmare. And torque them down to 10 Newton meter. Install the AC compressor belt. And finally we can install the power steering belt. And now that we have all the belts in place, we can start to tension them properly. Reconnect the oil pressure sensor. Next, we can put the rotor back on. First, we can put the dust shield. Now we can install the distributor. Our next job is gonna be valve adjustment. First thing that we have to do is remove the spark plug. We can just leave them break loose. We don't need to remove them completely. We are just doing it so it's gonna be easier to rotate the engine. Perfect, and now we can start removing the valve cover. Okay, bracket removed. We have to disconnect the PCV hose. Perfect. There is this clip, another clip. And now we can remove and see how beautiful is this engine. But before to do so, let's use some compressed air just to make sure. And now remove the valve cover gasket. Oh yes, okay. It's pretty clean, not bad at all. As we can see, the engine is pretty clean. There is no sludge, nothing. Also the valve cover gasket seems to be recently replaced, but we are gonna put a brand new one anyway. And here we can see the valve cover, which is also spotless. It's super clean and this is great. Let's check that this is the correct width for the valve adjustment, which needs to be set at 0.25 millimeter. Perfect. Okay, we are starting from cylinder 1. We already have the valve completely closed, so the rocket arm doesn't have any pressure on, and then we can install the filler gauge. The filler gauge doesn't go at all. Okay, so this valve is too tight because we need to be able to fit at 0.25 millimeter and only at 0.20 millimeter fits, so we have to break this loose and adjust it. Okay, we need a 10 millimeter. We use an Allen key to fit it here, so we can move it. Let's grab our filler gauge. Okay, perfect. Now our filler gauge goes in but is too loose, so we have to adjust it accordingly. And now we can tighten this back on. And this is exactly the amount of force that we want to have with the filler gauge. Not too tight, not too loose. Okay, this is done. Now we can do the remaining. In the end, all the valves needed to be adjusted. They were a little bit too tight. They were set at 0.20 millimeter, which could be also good, but I prefer to have it at 0.25. The last one. Okay, with the valve adjusted, now we can put a new valve cover gasket on. First, let's clean the surface. Put a new gasket and lubricate the camshaft lobe for the first startup. And reinstall the valve cover. We are not torquing to spec there right now. We just want to tighten a little bit. We can reconnect the PCV hose and reinstall the radiator. Reinstall the radiator clips and reinstall the lower radiator hose. Reconnect the hose clamp and reinstall the petcock valve. Beautiful. And now we can finish reinstalling all the upper radiator hoses. Reinstall the radiator bolts. Reconnect the expansion tank hose. Reconnect the clip and secure the wire. Secure the radiator clamps and use a piece of cardboard to protect the radiator while we are removing the clutch fan assembly. This is reverse thread. And use the 32mm key to secure the clutch fan. Oh, okay, it's more than enough. Next, we are ready to start flushing the coolant system. So for now, we are just gonna be using straight distilled water with no coolant at all, and we are gonna repeat this process for a few time until we see that the water coming from the system it's clear and is not contaminated. So then when we're installing the new coolant, it's gonna be only the blue BMW one. Okay, I was doing some editing when I realized that I left the paper inside the thermostat housing. And now I have to remove it. What a idiot. And here we can see my idiocracy. You know, they said that there is no limit for stupidity, and they are right. And let's pretend that nothing happened. With the coolant system down and with the disaster avoided, now it's time to install the spark plug, and we want to make sure that they are gapped correctly. I'm using a block of wood to push the spark plug. In this way they are not gonna get damaged. Let's put them in. And torque them in to 25 Newton meter. Perfect. And now we can reinstall the spark plug wire, reconnect everything to the distributor, to the spark plug, and have the car ready to be fired up. Replace the air filter. 2021 filter super clean, but we are gonna put a new one anyway. Reinstall the filter housing. Put some fresh oil that we are gonna discharge after. We are just gonna have it run on the car for the period that we are gonna doing the coolant flushing, and then put a new one. And finally we are ready to start the car.